If you're watching a replay, thank you so much. But this is going to be a reading excerpt of One of Us is Dead by Jeneva Rose, which is the book club pick for this Sunday, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern. If you happen to listen to all of these replays and you want to join, just send me an email to ddsaidso64@gmail.com and I will send you the Zoom link. So the book became available on my Libby. I'm going to read for about an hour. The replay will be up, and then I'll be here every night until we finish. And if we happen to not finish, hey, if we happen to not finish by Sunday, we'll just have to leave on the cliffhanger. So I'm going to read the synopsis and then I'm going to get started. You're right on time. Okay. One of Us is Dead. Glad to see you. One of Us is Dead by Jeneva Rose. Meet the Women of Buckhead, a place of expensive cars, huge houses, and competitive friendships. Shannon was once the queen bee of Buckhead, but she's been unceremoniously dumped by Bryce, her politician husband. When Bryce replaces her with a much younger woman, Shannon sets out to take revenge. Okay. Crystal has stepped into Shannon's old shoes, a young, innocent Texan girl. She simply has no idea what she's up against. Olivia has waited years to take Shannon's crown as the unofficial queen of Buckhead. Finally, her moment has come, but to take her rightful place, she will need to use every backstabbing, manipulative, underhanded trick in the book. Jenny owns Glow, the most exclusive salon in town. Jenny knows all her clients' secrets and darkest desires, but will she ever tell? Who amongst these women will be clever enough to survive Buckhead, and who will wind up dead? They say that friendships can be complex, but no one said it could ever be this deadly. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to get it started. Let's get it started. It said the book is about 312 pages. It normally takes me about an hour to read like 60 pages, so we theoretically should be done by Sunday, but we'll see. Okay, let's go to Libby. Hey, is this Felix? Hey, Felix. Come on in where the table is spread. Okay. One of Us is Dead by Jeneva Rose. So there's 85 chapters. It looked like it's in the POV of hold on. I accidentally went to chapter 80. I don't even know how that happens. So it looks like it's in the different POVs of Jenny, Olivia, Karen, Crystal, who are the ladies that were mentioned in the synopsis. Okay. Chapter 1, Jenny. Present. I've spent thousands of hours working on these women. I've primped, waxed, cut, painted, spray tanned, powdered, and massaged them. I know almost every inch of their bodies, but I also know their demons, their deepest, darkest secrets. The things we try to bury beneath the surface so as not to show the world the doppelganger lurking within us. So am I surprised something like this happened? Not even the slightest. I figured it would. It was just a matter of time. I readjusted myself, crossing one leg over the other beneath the table. Across from me sits Detective Frank Stanford, a stern-looking middle-aged man with hard facial features and broad shoulders. He's your classic blue-collar detective. Despite the suit and tie he's wearing, his appearance is anything but polished and put together. His red-rimmed eyes give away the fact that he works far too many hours and gets far too little sleep. We have more in common than he'll ever know. How do you know their deepest, darkest secrets, Jenny? I mean, are you their therapist too? I thought you were a hairstylist. Detective Stanford asks, jutting out his chiseled chin covered in stubble. His eyes tight and staring instantly at me as he pauses his notebook and waits for an answer. We're sitting across from each other in a well-lit interrogation room. The air is stale and cold, and I can tell if the room is trying to match the aura of the detective or the other way around. Hold on. I am reading One of Us is Dead. If you come in here and you're being rude, you will get removed. I'm both in a way. I don't know how much time you spend inside salons, Detective Stanford, but women talk. I cross my arms in front of my chest, holding his gaze, especially when they're sitting in the salon chair with nothing but time on their hands. I know this man has never set foot inside a salon, and not just based on his own level of self care. The truth is, I know more about my clients than I do my own family, especially this group of women. I see each of them multiple times a week. They have cash to burn, or at least their husbands do, and they can afford to pour resources into fighting the greatest war of their lives, the one against the effects of time and the human body. I see, and you're the owner of Glow Beauty Bar, correct? He generously taps his pencil on the table. The one and only, I nod. He picks his pencil back up and jots down a couple of more notes, careful not to miss anything. And how long have you owned the salon? My eyes wander for a moment as I recall when I purchased it. About 5 years now. And have these women been your clients the whole time? He creases his brow. No, they didn't become my clients until around 3 years ago. Glow wasn't always the salon it is today. Hey, hey. He writes down a couple of more notes and circling something on his paper. I catch a glimpse of the words within the circle. Glow, pass. I see. So you've known these women for 3 years and you're not surprised that any of this happened? He raises his thick dark eyebrows. No, don't let them fool you, detective. Individually they're genuine and they can be kind, but when you put them in a room together, these women are downright toxic. 2. Jenny. 3 weeks before the murder. Olivia plopped her tight, skinny butt in my chair and dropped her oversized Hermes bag on the ground. Her long, lush mahogany hair brushed my face as she tossed it over her shoulder without a care. Thanks to me, it was full of the perfect number of lowlights and highlights. She was dressed in a red jumpsuit that left little to the imagination. Olivia always wore red in some variation, whether it was her whole outfit, a bold lip, or an eye-catching accessory. Red was her power color, her security blanket, and she never been caught dead with anything other than a pair of red bottom Louboutins. As I wrapped a freshly clean cape around her, Olivia stared at herself in the mirror with pure and utter admiration. She turned her head from side to side, observing her perfectly sculpted nose, over over injected plump lips, and high cheekbones. If a brown haired Barbie doll were blown up to life size, it would look just like Olivia. I could tell she was pleased with her appearance as she gave herself a slight smirk, revealing veneers so bright that they could challenge a 100-watt light bulb. I've been her hairstylist, makeup artist, nail technician, waxer, tanner, lash artist, and there's so much more for the years as time progressed. I had noticed that her lips kept getting plumper, her cheekbones higher, and her skin smoother. Like tectonic plates, her face was always shifting. What are we doing today? I asked as I gently run a comb through her soft hair while looking at her in the mirror. I already knew what she wanted, but customer service 101 dictates you always let the client tell you what they want. So I waited for her to tell me. She held up her finger at me while she typed vigorously into her phone. Olivia and I were opposites in every way. While her hair was dark and long, mine was strawberry blonde, wavy, and fell right about my shoulders. Her facial features were hard and cutting. Mine were soft and rounded. Her eyes were rich like milk chocolate. Mine were a cool blue. Her face was free of any beauty marks while mine was speckled with freckles. She set her phone in her lap, briefly looked at me, and then returned her gaze to the single most important thing in Olivia's life. Olivia. Roots and trims, and I need a wax. Dean is coming to home tonight. There was a sparkle in her eye and a little bit of giddiness in her voice, like a schoolgirl talking about her first crush. Dean and Olivia Petrov have been married for over a decade, and it surprised me that they still had a flame of passion between them. Then again, toxic relationships are great for extreme highs and lows. Well then, we'll make sure you're absolutely perfect for him. I'm already perfect for him, Olivia snarked. I smiled and nodded. I had learned over the years that this was the best way to handle difficult clients, and Olivia held the title of the most difficult. But you always make me better than perfect, she added. Olivia had a true talent for complimenting herself before she complimented others. She was the same with kind words and insults. I coined the term kinsults thanks to her. It was like she had created a cruel language of her own. You wouldn't even realize she was insulting you because they were wrapped up like a present, complete with a nice bow. The best part about my job was making women feel good about themselves. I loved the way their faces lit up after I finished with them. Beauty glow is what I like to call it, hence the name of the salon. Glow Beauty Bar. Thank you so much. Um, Olivia was one of those rare clients that always had that glow, so it wasn't as fun making her over. But she tipped well, and her beauty treatments had single handedly paid off the mortgage on my apartment above the salon. What do you and Dean have planned tonight? I asked. Olivia looked up from her phone. A little of this, a little of that, she winked. She always thought she was so cryptic, but her text message revealed exactly what she was up to tonight. I nodded and returned to mixing up the dye. I love your freckles, Jenny, but have you ever considered wearing a full coverage foundation? Olivia's eyes scanned my face. Ken saw. I used to, but freckles are in, I said with a smile. Women even draw them on now. She shrugged and returned her eyes to her phone, scrolling through her highly edited Instagram photos. If you say so. Although I love where my business was at now, sometimes I thought it was easier in the old days. I never used to have to deal with high maintenance clients. I opened Glow Beauty Bar 5 years ago. It had always been my dream to own a boutique full service salon, but things weren't as glamorous as I'd hoped. I started off with peeling paint and a hodgepodge of used furniture and old salon equipment, and the client list consisted of errant old women that were wandering off into the street. I continued to struggle until one day, about 3 years ago, Olivia came into my salon with hair emergency. Apparently, her regular hairstylist had up and moved to New York City, so she tried out another salon that completely botched her dye job. I was her saving grace. She got word out to her elite friends about me, and my salon transformed from a barely making it by cheap salon to a full service beauty bar for the upper class women of Buckhead. I added two tanning beds, a spray tan machine, a pedicure and manicure area, a waxing room, a makeup bar, a sitting area, and a wine and champagne bar. Basically anything they wanted, I delivered. There's a waiting list to even become a client here now, and I only accept 25 full-time clients. By full-time, I mean my clients agree to have a minimum of 8 services a month. If they fail to do so, they're terminated as a client, or at least regulated to the waiting list. It's very exclusive and very expensive. Are you adding facials anytime soon? Thank you for adding that. I wish we could pin. I don't know if we can pin comments over here. Oh yeah. Okay. Are you adding facials anytime soon? Olivia pulled at her skin. It didn't move. Her face never moved, thanks to her frequent Botox sessions. I hadn't considered it, I said. This is exactly why you need me. Someone to think about the bigger picture. You should hire an esthetician. Some of your clients are going to be in serious need of anti-aging treatment soon, like Shannon. Olivia attempted to raise an eyebrow, but instead her eyes half squinted. I gave her a small smile and directed my focus back to her hair. Olivia thought she was the sole owner of gold. Unfortunately, she was an angel investor, but I hoped within 3 years I'd buy her share out. She was far too demanding. I was grateful she had saved the salon, but in a way, she had used it to propel her social status. This place had become my clients' personal hangout, their home away from their mansions. Olivia and her friends treated it like their own living room, hosting book club, wine nights, hangout for gossip, and committee meetings. Her phone vibrated and she picked it back up, typing vigorously. I read text here and there as I began applying the dye to her roots. If my clients were talking to me, they were making calls or texting, always fearful of missing out on the next hot piece of gossip. It was hard not to pay attention, not to put things together, not to figure out what was happening amongst these women. So where was Dean been? Where has Dean been? I asked. The second best part of my job was chatting with my clients. They told me everything, and sometimes not intentionally, but they did. Their hopes, dreams, failures, worries, problems, insecurities, everything. I really enjoyed getting to know them. I like feeling like I was a part of their lives, even if I wasn't. It made work feel less like work and more like I was just hanging out every day. I was good at asking questions and I was great at listening. I hated any attention on me, so it was a good match because my clients love to talk, especially about themselves. Oh, actually, I'm not sure, she said. He's like a stray dog sometimes. Can't keep track of him. She added with a laugh. Olivia and Dean were two of the most influential and powerful people in Buckhead, so for them, it was all about keeping up appearances. Even though I had known her for 3 years, I didn't have a clue what Dean did for a living, and I don't think she did either. As long as she kept getting her allowance, I don't think she cared. Rumor had it that he was into some sort of shady smuggling business, but if you ask him, he'd tell you it's chain supply. Speaking of stray dogs, are there any in your life? She smiled. I continued to paint her roots with a rich dye, which smelled like ammonia. It wasn't a smell most people liked, but I did. It was comforting. No, none for me. This salon is my life. I glanced around and taking it all in. 5 years into the inception, Glow is now clean and modern with hardwood floors and throughout exceptional track lighting and the newest and most expensive salon equipment. There are black velvet floor to ceiling curtains separating the reception area from the rest of the salon. No one gets past those curtains unless you're a client or an employee. Non-clients speak of this place like the throne of the Buckingham Palace. Oh, oh, sweetie, you can't make a building that you building your whole life, she said with a chuckle. And let's say it's a lot coming from me. I sell my soul for a crocodile Birkin. Oh, you probably don't even know what that is, which is best for you. You have simpler things to focus on. Kenso. I gave a tight lip smile and began trimming her ends. She had just had a trim last week, so it was quite unnecessary, but she was the one with the black Amex. Her phone buzzed again, and I glanced down, seeing it was a text from someone named Bryce Midlife Crisis. Sorry, Jenny. I completely forgot I have to grab lunch with the lady today. How long is this going to take? She bounced her foot quickly. 30 minutes for the hair, but waxing will take another 30. Well, we'll have to skip the wax for now. Gotta make nice with the new wife. Her voice was laced with sarcasm. New wife? Crystal Madison, the new wife of Bryce. And if you ask me, a major upgrade from Shannon, she smirked. Yeah, I heard Bryce left Shannon for a younger woman. They just married, right? Bryce was a U.S. congressman and he served on the committee for trade. There were rumors swirling of infidelity 2 months before his re-election campaign ended. He barely got re-elected. Right after he was voted back in, he left Shannon and married Crystal, spending the whole thing with the press as though he was stuck in a loveless marriage and finally found true love. I assume he planned it out nicely to give himself enough time to repair his image before the next election. Have you met Crystal yet? She shot me a quick glance in the mirror. Nope, haven't had the pleasure. I shook my head. You probably won't. She's real country, she said, putting a little twang in it. Olivia always tried to hide the slow drawl of her thick Georgia accent under some odd combination veneer of Upper West Side Manhattan meets Midwestern news anchor. But once in a while, her country would come out to her great dismay. Not into glitz and glam of Buckhead. I brushed out the ends of Olivia's hair and checked the time of the dime. Buckhead is a wealthy uptown district of Atlanta. It does sound all that nice with a hard name like Buckhead, but to give you an idea, the average home costs well over $800,000. It's known as the Beverly Hills of the East. Not at all. Don't get me wrong. She's beautiful, a real Jessica Simpson lookalike, but I don't think she'll be a regular of yours. Too all natural and fresh faced for my taste, and she's young, like 25. Olivia rolled her eyes. Olivia didn't like young because she wasn't anymore. She would never be one of those women that age gracefully. She would fight it tooth and nail. Much younger than Bryce, I noted. Oh, yes, Shannon was probably most mad about that. You know, her husband traded her for a younger woman, but Bryce is all about trade, Olivia said pointedly with a chuckle. I bet that hasn't been easy for her. How she's holding up? I gestured Olivia to a sink. She sat down and leaned her head back as I gently rinsed out her hair. Don't know, don't care, she said flippantly. Well, you two are friends, I said a little louder to speak over the sound of the water and because I was also shocked to hear Olivia hadn't checked on Shannon after everything she had been through. Correction, were friends. I have to distance myself from that. Shannon is stinking ship in this town. Sure, she has alimony, but Bryce has all the influence and power. My eyes grew wide as I processed what she had just said. Olivia and Shannon had been close, and to learn that they weren't any longer because her husband left her was a shock. At that moment, I knew something wasn't right. The balance in this group wasn't the same. It was like when all the wind stops and the sky turns bright right before the storm explodes. I hadn't seen Shannon this month yet, and she was close to getting terminated as a client. She had 7 days to come in for 8 treatments, and I had intended to give her a little wiggle room, but it was clear Olivia wanted her out. I made a mental note to call Shannon that afternoon to remind her. That's a shame to hear. I feel bad for her, I said. Don't. Shannon was never the nice person. Anyway, she was awful to me and I had to practically force her to become a client of yours. She thought this place was beneath her. Olivia twisted up her nose. A slight frown spread across my face as I patted Olivia's hair dry with the towel. Oh, don't let it bother you too much. Shannon's just a bee every day. Olivia waved her hand dismissively. I'm not bothered by it. She's been through a lot. I walked Olivia back to the hair station. Well, she's a has-been. Hang it up. Has-been. Oh, my goodness. And it won't look good for business to have her here. She's just a reminder of how far the mighty can fall. It's sad, really. Olivia pulled out her phone and began scrolling through her thousands of selfies while I blow dried her hair. I had loyalty to all my clients, even the worst of them. I never minded listening to the drama between the women. I understood that people need to vent and not everyone could got along all the time, but I never wanted to be pulled into the middle of it. I listened, but I refused to participate. However, that's the thing about drama. Participation isn't always required. Olivia typed to a text a group named Buckhead's Women's Foundation. I read the words as her bony fingers pecked at the keys. Things were about to get bad. The front door chimed just as I finished fluffing Olivia's hair with my fingers. It was perfect. The volume and shine made it look like she just walked out of the shampoo commercial. Going back, Mary, the salon's receptionist said from the front. Olivia stood up and admired herself once more in the mirror, puckering her lips and ensuring every strand of hair was in place. Karen Richardson emerged behind the curtains. She had a shoulder-length bob of red hair that looked like the glowing warmth of fresh coals out of the bottom of a campfire. She was a loyal client, a luxury real estate lawyer, and a close friend of Olivia's. Well, as close as one can get in Buckhead. She was thin and wispy, without an ounce of fat on her. With her concave cheeks, flat, wide jaw, and large, toothy smile, she looked more like a runway model than a mother of a realtor or a realtor. Karen directed her attention to Olivia. Did you just call an emergency meeting? Emergency committee meeting? Sorry. Hold on. Olivia turned and faced Karen, her hair whooshing over her shoulders dramatically. Yes, don't worry, it won't take long. And why is it at the cafe instead of here? I figured it'd be easier since we're meeting Bryce's midlife crisis afterwards for lunch. Olivia gave a small smile. Karen sighed and hesitated for a moment like she was trying to read Olivia. What's the meeting about? She said, putting a hand on her hip. You'll find out when you arrive. Olivia turned towards me. Thanks so much, Jenny. You're the best. She planted two light kisses on either side of my face, grabbed her bag off the floor, handed me $100 bill as a tip, and walked out glowing my specialty. She's too much sometimes. Karen shook her head and watched Olivia strut out of the salon. But not all the time, I said with a smile. Peacekeeping was also a part of my job, and it seemed one of my biggest responsibilities going forward. If you're just joining, we are reading I Wish I Was a Model. I know, right? This is my first time going live on YouTube in a while. I don't even know. Can you make people mods? I can. I can make you a moderator. Yes. Okay. Okay. Shall we? I gestured with my hand towards the back, and we walked to the spray tan room. Karen stripped down naked quickly. There was no awkwardness then, as I spray tanned her over 100 times before, and by now it was all routine. I knew her body better than I knew my own. Every freckle, every scar. Big day for you. Emergency committee meeting and lunch with the ladies. God, don't remind me. Karen let out a huff of annoyance. Thank you. Hey, Nevaeh. I grinned. Karen smiled as I continued to spray her milky white skin a light bronze color. I'm not sure what Livia's up to, but I'm sure it's no good. And you heard about Krista, right? I nodded. I haven't met her in person yet, but I feel like I'm betraying Shannon by welcoming her in. Have you talked to Shannon about it? Yes, but not about Crystal. Sharon's been a mess, and I didn't even mention that I was getting lunch with her and Olivia. Karen turned to the side just as I finished spraying the front of her. Maybe you should talk to her about it. Shannon, that is. I should, but if she has an issue with it, there's not a lot I can do. Karen turned and I sprayed her back. I have a business that I have to run, and I run it professionally. You understand that. I nodded because I understood better than anyone. Karen wasn't like the other wives. She had a young son, and she didn't depend on her husband for money. Although as a plastic surgeon, he brought in plenty, but Karen had built a real estate empire from the ground up, and she became so successful that she had an entire team behind her. So all she had to do was sweep in and close the deals. And then obviously we have to welcome Crystal into our circle since she's married to Bryce, and in town is all about who you know and what you wear, how you look, and how much money and power you have, Karen sighed. You don't have to remind me, I laughed. Oh, stop, she patted my shoulder. You are the it girl of this town. Just no one knows it. I gave a crooked smile and handed her a towel. Oh, honey, but they will. So if you're just joining, we are reading One of Us is Dead by Jeneva Rose. We just read the first two chapters, so just to break it down. So far we have three important names. We have Olivia, who seems to be like kind of like the head honcho. Shannon was married to Bryce. Bryce divorced her. Now he's married to Crystal, so they have to welcome Crystal in. And Karen is just another one of the wives who doesn't depend on her husband, but she like makes her own money. Chapter 3, Olivia. Perfect. Everyone is here. I glanced at each of the women sitting around a table in a private room of a nice cafe. A large smile was plastered across my face. I couldn't help it. I had waited years for this. We were the board of Buckhead's Women's Foundation. We were the elite because we planned the hottest events for some charity or another. Everyone wanted to be us. Karen raised an eyebrow at me. Shannon isn't here. That's right, because this is about her, I said, lifting my chin. Sophia, the secretary, sat in the left of me, writing down everything I said like I was Shakespeare himself. She was a nice person to have in line behind me, but she'd never be a part of my inner circle. Sure, Sophie was wealthy, but aside from that, the only thing she had to offer was note taking. Plus, she was as bland as a box of unsalted saltine crackers. Her appearance matched her personality. Boring. Tina, the treasurer, flipped through her ledger. Each flip of the page blew a whiff of that musky, disgusting perfume she always wore. Even though she was rich, she smelled poor. If Tina weren't so hard to look at, we'd certainly be close. But she had started her plastic surgery journey before it was perfected, and with a surgeon that was less than skilled. As a result, it looked as though her skin would slide right off her face into her lap. My eyes could only take so much. Tina, your skin is glowing, I complimented. I can barely notice the lack of elasticity today. Olivia, you're too kind, she said with a smile. And Sophie, your outfit is so you. I could never pull that off. Girl, you're right. Shall we get started? Tina and Sophie nodded. Karen leaned back in her chair and tilted her head. I didn't have to get her on board for this decision. I just needed 2 votes and I had them. Buckhead's Women Foundation Emergency Committee meeting is now in session, Sophie said. Great. So the reason I called you all here today is out of concern. We all know that Shannon has been going through an extremely tough time. My heart hurts for her. I placed my hand on my chest and made my face sympathetic. It was my least favorite facial expression. Tina and Sophie nodded again. Karen sat forward in her seat. I'm calling a motion for Sanders to step down as chairwoman. All in favor? Sophie and Tina started to put up their hands. Hold on, this isn't right, Karen practically yelled, so unladylike. Sophie and Tina quickly put their hands down. Cowards. No, Karen, what isn't right is our events and charity suffering like Shannon is. I kept my voice calm. How are they suffering? Karen's eyes went wide. Sophie, please read out those that were missing from the 2 meetings I instructed. She nodded and flipped through her notes. Shannon. I rest my case, I said with a tight smile. But she's been planning the upcoming gala just fine. I relayed everything she had said at those meetings, Karen argued. A leader leads, Karen. She doesn't relate through the PR chair. I shook my head. Olivia's right, Tina cuts in. I don't even have the finances up to date because she hasn't gotten them to me. And it's not fair that I have to mark her absent. I get enough hand cramps as if with all the note taking, Sophie added. I nearly rolled my eyes. Her argument was weak and boring like herself. We had rehearsed this. I don't want to be the bad guy here. Yes, I do. But according to the bylaws, 2 or more meetings missed by a board member without a proper reason is grounds for dismissal from their position, I said, and that was what Sophie was supposed to say. Yes, that's right. Sophie flipped through the folder and pushed a piece of paper in front of Karen. Karen quickly read over it and looked back at me. Isn't divorce a proper reason? No, it's not in the bylaws, I said. We didn't include it because it's so common these days, Tina says. Some of our regular members are on divorce number 3, but members get more leeway than the board. Karen let out a groan. Can we make an exception? In unison, I and my 2 minions shook our heads. It's a slippery slope, Karen, so motion to remove Shannon as chairwoman. Tina, Sophie, and I raised our hands. All opposed? Karen raised her hand. Okay, it's settled. Shannon Manderson is no longer chairwoman of the Buckhead Women's Foundation. Don't worry, Karen. She is still a member and she can always run again at the next election, I said with a smile. Sophie quickly wrote it all down in the meeting notes. I'd like to make a motion, Tina said. Good girl. Motion to make Olivia Petro chairwoman. All in favor? I shut up my hand so fast I nearly dislocated my shoulder. Tina and Sophie followed suit. Karen let out a deep breath. All opposed? Tina said. Karen didn't even raise her hand. Defeated. This is BS, Karen said. No, it's business, which is basically the same thing, I said with a lighthearted laugh. How about this? We're only a week away from the gala, and Shannon has worked so hard on the event, it should be her last event as chairwoman. We'll make the announcement to the rest of the members at the following meeting. How does that sound? I cocked my head and upped my smile a few notches, not too big, not too small. Karen pulled her lips in and thought for a moment. It was a nice offer. Actually, it was rather kind of me. I was playing the long game. You have to sprinkle some kindness in there. Okay, that gala means a lot to her, so that's fair, she said, pushing out her full lips. I'm glad you feel the same way. We do have a vice chairwoman position to fill, so we'll take nomination at the next meeting and vote that meeting after. Everyone good with that? I asked. Nods all around. Here you are, the server said. 4 cucumber mint detox drinks. She placed one in front of each of us. I held mine up for cheers to myself, of course. I figured we needed to cleanse ourselves too, I said with a laugh. Tina and Sophie chuckled too, as they should. Cheers to the end of the suffrage and the new beginning with a new leader. I clinked my glass against Tina and Sophie's. Karen just brought hers to her lips and sucked the whole thing down, clearly unhappy with the decisions made. But she'll get over it. After all, she wasn't like me. She was a forgive and forget kind of person. I, on the other hand, always believed that there was another option on the table. Forgive, forget, or effing never let it go. Yeah. Chapter 4. Karen. I left the private room of the cafe in a huff. Shannon would be furious, maybe with me too, but there wasn't much I could do with Olivia blindsiding me while Tina and Sophie lacked the backbone and brains to stand up to her. Had she been planning this all alone? Technically, Olivia was right. Bylaws were bylaws, and Shannon had been absent at the past 2 meetings, but still, the whole thing didn't sit right with me. I walked through the cafe and found Crystal already seated at a table waiting for Olivia and me. I'd seen photos of her on social media from doing a little stalking with Shannon while deep into the few bottles of wine, but she was much prettier in person. She sat with her legs crossed wearing a floral summer dress at a round table adorned with expensive glassware, fresh tulips, and a white linen cloth. Her long blonde hair had natural waves throughout and she was tan. Not like me, a tan for being outside. She had a different glow to her. She was fresh-faced and beautiful in effortless ways. I could see what Bray saw in her. I approached the table and she seemed uncertain as to who I was. She clearly hadn't done her research. Crystal? Yeah, that's me. She smiled. Her voice was full of Texas. I held out my hand. I'm Karen Richardson. It's great to meet you. She stood from the table and gave me a hug instead. I expected her to be giddy, but she had a calm demureness to her. She was pleasant. I wanted to hate her for Shannon's sake, but I couldn't, at least not yet. I took a seat at the table, setting my bag on the chair beside me, and ordered a Chardonnay from the server. I didn't normally drink on a weekday at lunch, but after the committee meeting, I needed something stronger than celery juice. So, how's Buckhead treating you? I asked, knowing she had only been here in the area for a couple of months and was just now putting herself out there in the community. She had been a recluse while she settled in. I didn't blame her. Most of the women immediately didn't like her, since she had stolen Shannon's husband. Fine so far, just trying to get a feel and understanding of the town. She fidgeted with her napkin, wringing it up, and then flattened it out. Oh, honey, I've lived here for over a decade, and I still don't feel like I understand this town, I said with a laugh. She laughed too. Got any advice? Just be patient. People will come around. I took a sip of my wine. I could see her loosen up a little. She was clearly nervous and didn't want to be here. I assumed Bryce had pushed her into making nice with us. He was all about fixing his reputation after leaving Shannon. So, what do you do? Crystal asked. I drink. I took a sip of my wine. Her eyes went wide for a moment. I'm kidding. She took a gulp of her pint glass. It was a beer. I hadn't even noticed she was drinking beer. I knew that I liked her. The women around here drank blended vegetables, champagne, wine, or vodka. They never drank beer. Seriously though, I set my drink down. I run my own luxury real estate firm and I have a 5-year-old son named Riley. I grabbed my phone and showed her a couple of pictures of my wild little man. A lanky boy who looked like a perfect cross between Mark and me. He had my eyes and nose, but Mark's hair and height. He's precious, Crystal gushed. Yes, he's my world. I put my phone back in my purse. Do you have any kids? I knew she didn't. But I wanted to gauge if she wanted them. If she and Bryce had talked about having any. I don't know if I was asking for myself or for Shannon. Gosh, no. I'd love to have a few someday, but not for a while. Don't think I'm ready for that. Excuse me. I'm sure Bryce is more than ready. I didn't know why I said that. It was a dig, a small one for Shannon. It would be my last. I told myself. Crystal was nice. There was no reason I should hate her. She let out a small, awkward cough. And you run your own real estate business? That's impressive, she said, genuinely interested. Thanks. I built it from the ground up when I first moved here. I wanted to have something of my own, and it's gotten so successful that it doesn't take up as much of my time anymore. I'm more the face of it now. I make the appearances and close the deals. I smile at her. I'd love to do that someday. have something of my own. She took a small drink of her beer. I sipped my wine, and at that moment, I spotted Olivia walking across the restaurant. She was late, as usual, which made no sense because she was already at the cafe. But that was Olivia, and she had changed since our meeting. She was now dressed in a tight scarlet dress that was a perfect mix of classy and sexy. Olivia had mastered Clexy, as she coined it. So sorry I'm late. Olivia took a seat at the table. Hi, I'm Olivia Patrol. She and Crystal hugged and introduced themselves. Olivia ordered a Chardonnay and a salad. I ordered a salad as well, and Crystal ordered a burger with fries. Olivia squinted her eyes at her order, clearly judging her and hating her at the same time. Crystal was 25. She could get away with eating whatever she wanted. Olivia and I were in our mid-30s. We had to save our calories for wine. As Olivia and I nibbled our salads and sipped our glasses of wine, Crystal took large mouthfuls of her beer and massive bites of her burger. Olivia watched her as if she were watching a caged animal at the zoo, a curious yet pitiful creature. Crystal let out a small burp. Excuse me. She dabbed at the corners of her lips and then continued eating. She was at least trying to fit in, but a Texas girl can't throw out her cowboy boots and lasso. She tried to sit up straight, copying the way Olivia was sitting, but every minute or so her shoulders would slouch, and she'd have to reposition herself. We sat in silence, focusing on the food in front of us and exchanging quick glances and small smiles. I didn't know what to say. It was awkward, but not my idea of fun afternoon. It was Olivia who finally broke the silence. So, you and Bryce, how did you two meet? Of course, Olivia was going to go there, straight to the gossip. I would have said it was inappropriate, but I was curious myself. How did a girl like Crystal meet a man like Bryce? Crystal set down her burger and wiped her mouth with a napkin. She cleared her throat. At a bar in Texas I was working at. He was in town for some business thing, and we hit it off. There was a twinkle in her eye, not in a malicious way, but in a loving way. She clearly cared for Bryce. Did you know that he was married? Olivia smirked. I'm not judging you, she added, as if that made her question less than appropriate. Crystal darted her eyes at both of us while she bit at her lower lip. She chugged the rest of her beer and set the pint glass down with a force. I'm going to lay this out there because I don't want it to be a thing any longer. I didn't at first. He didn't tell me right away. And when he did, I had already fallen in love with him. I'm not the type of woman, but I guess in a way, I am. And I feel bad for Shannon. I never intended for this to happen, but it did. I met a man and I fell in love with him. I'm not sorry for that, and I don't think I should be, she said in all in one breath, as if she practiced it a couple of times before. Crystal looked at each of us for our approval. No need to be sorry, Olivia said, giving Crystal the support she was seeking. It was obvious Olivia didn't mean it. When you know, she added. Olivia winked at me. I wasn't sure why she was winking at me, but I gave her a smile anyway. Buckhead was all about smiles. You smile when you were pissed, you smile when you were pleased. I just want to say this out there, too. I'm friends with Shannon, but I want to be cordial with you as well. I hope that you can understand, and I hope Shannon can, too. I felt entirely guilty for being here. My loyalty was and should have been with Shannon. Yes, it should have. I understand, Crystal nodded, and I respect that. I smiled at her, a pleased smile that is. Olivia tossed down her napkin and drank the rest of her wine. I don't. I'm done with Shannon, and you should be too. I tilted my head and furrowed my brow. Was taking her position as chairwoman not enough? No. Do you not remember the way that she used to treat me when I first arrived in Buckhead? Olivia lifted her chin. She took a sip of her freshly poured glass of wine. No, and besides that was a long time ago, I rolled my eyes. The bully forgets they're a bully. The victim never does. Besides, she's a has-been now, divorced from her husband and her committee position. I don't need any dead weight in my life, and I can't deal with the sort of negativity. Olivia pursed her lips. I threw my napkin down on the table. Yes, that was a time that Shannon and Olivia did not get along, but I don't remember it being that bad. It was like 5 years ago, right around the time that I had Riley. Things got a little ugly, I think. I don't really recall. I had my hands full with a newborn and running my business. But who holds on to things for that long? Olivia does. I was about to storm out that I had resisted because I hadn't paid my check and because Crystal didn't deserve that just yet. I knew there was much more going on here than Olivia and Shannon's history that was causing Olivia to be upset. It was obvious. Shannon wasn't much older than Olivia, and her husband traded her in for a newer model. Her hatred towards her was laced with insecurity and fear. Olivia was clearly trying to ostracize Shannon because she was fearing becoming her. Fear makes people crazy. Insecurity makes them even crazier. I don't want to cause any problems, Crystal looked at me. I admire that you want to maintain your loyalty to Shannon and be and sociable with me too. She looked at Olivia, and please don't feel like you need to cut Shannon out because of me. I'm not cutting Shannon out because of you. I'm cutting Shannon out because she effing deserves it. Olivia stood up with force. The chair fell behind her. She threw $100 bill at the table, her specialty, and stormed out of the restaurant without looking back. She was always one for dramatics. This was Olivia's same way of showing Crystal two things. One, that you don't mess with her, and two, that she do well to keep her close. Delusion is a powerful force. I rolled my eyes and finished the wine in my glass, then drank the rest of Olivia's too. Crystal crinkled her nose, dabbed her chin with a napkin, and took intermittent sips of water. You'll have to get used to her, I said with a laugh. It was true. Olivia grew up on people, like cancer. She was never a person you liked immediately unless she wanted you to like her. And the only way that happened is if you could offer her something. I mean, she was my friend, but I remember not liking her. And even though I often felt like I was just tolerating her, such was Buckhead. My phone buzzed and so did Crystal's. A message appeared in a group text from Olivia. I'm sorry for my outburst. I'm under a lot of pressure with my new position as chairwoman, and what Shannon did to me 5 years ago is still so raw. Please forgive me. I've covered the bill. XOXO Olivia. You'll have to really get used to her, I said, shaking my head. Yeah, Crystal trailed off. The server asked us if I wanted anything else. I ordered 2 shots of tequila. They came with the wheels. They came with the wheels, lime, salt, and Olivia's tantrum. We licked the salt, and before we took the shot, I gave us a toast. Cheers to Buckhead. I hope you make it out alive. We tipped back the shot, sucked the lime, and laughed. If you're just joining, we are reading One of Us is Dead by Geneva Rose. Chapter 5, Crystal. I left the cafe feeling good, buzzed and better than when I arrived, thanks to Karen. She was a breath of fresh air like Texas on an October morning. She reminded me of my home, her honesty and how down to earth she was. Olivia was a different story. She was a bit of a loose cannon. Her flippancy towards Shannon surprised me. I wonder what Shannon could have possibly done to Olivia to upset her so much. There was a mention of some sort of past wrongdoing, but I was unclear as to what happened. To me, Shannon was a victim in all of this. I didn't like that, and I know that I helped cause it. I didn't know Shannon, but I didn't need to in order to know that I was wrong to take her husband from her. Bryce's campaign building looked like a mini White House. It was here before I arrived, but he had told me he had designed it himself and paid for the construction out of his own pocket. Apparently, a regular office building wouldn't do him justice. I walked into the building, greeted his secretary, and walked straight into his office, carrying a sandwich and chips from a nearby cafe. I figured he'd be hungry and would want to know how it went with the women. It was it was he, after all, who encouraged me to meet with them. He was determined to fix his image and raise within politics, and he needed me and my cooperation to achieve that. Hey, hun, I said. He turned around from his window that overlooked the small green lawn and pressed a finger to his lips as he continued to chatter away on the phone. I sighed, unwrapped his sandwich and chips, and placed them in front of his chair. Taking a seat on the other side of the desk, I admired him as he paced back and forth. He was my ticket out of Texas, out of the bartending, out of my past, and out of living a life I wasn't proud of. I wanted more, and some of us are capable of more without hitching a ride, taking a like a tick burrowing its way deep inside the warm skin of an unsuspected carrier. But don't get me wrong, I fell for Bryce, and I fell hard. It was his perfectly dimpled chin, tall, athletic build, and piercing blue eyes that drew me to him while we first met. Bryce had it all: looks, brains, money, and power. A local group of mothers even coined the unofficial tagline of his last campaign: Bryce Madison, a smile so nice you voted into the office twice. I've never really it never really took off, but I think it helped him win his re-election. I don't care. Do not give those trucks any hassle, he said, ending the call abruptly. He tossed the phone on his desk and his face lit up when his eyes met mine. I brought you lunch, I smiled as he made his way around the desk. He returned my smile with a passionate kiss. His hands pressed on my lower back, sliding down, grabbing at my butt, making their way under my sundress. I gave a laugh and kissed him harder. He pulled back, straightened himself, and returned to the side of the desk. No other woman makes me lose control like you, Crystal. He winked at me and took a seat, diving into his sandwich. He was famished, always focused on the job. I'm glad that I have an effect on you, Mr. Madison. I blushed. He pressed the button on his desk phone. Bring me a water, Bryce commanded to his secretary. Moments later, she entered with 2 bottles of water, one for me and one for Bryce. I thanked her. Bryce didn't. I reminded myself to give him grief later. I understood that he was busy, stressed, and tired, but I was raised to know where there's no such thing as being too busy, too tired, or too stressed for manners. How'd it go with the ladies, Mrs. Madison? He raised an eyebrow. Fine, I wanted to leave it at that, but I knew that he pressed for more. Bryce wasn't the type of man. He always wanted more. He needed so badly for me to get along and fit in with them. It was all about repairing his image and enhancing mine. I understood, I guess. It was a life I chose. I knew there'd be a sacrifice. And I like Karen, I said. Good. She and her husband contribute a modest amount to the campaign, and she's a good person to know. Her real estate, her luxury real estate firm helps make this here office a reality. What about Olivia? She's fine. He tossed his sandwich on the desk. Please be straight with me. I didn't get much of a chance to really know her, I suppose. She stormed off in the middle of lunch after getting in a tiff with Karen about Shannon, and then she sent an apology text like 2 minutes later, which was rather odd. So if I had to give it to your opinion right now, I'd say I'm not a fan. I crossed my arms over my chest. You have to give her a chance. Her husband is a huge contributor, and Olivia has a lot of influence in town. I hear she's a new chairwoman of the Buckhead Women's Foundation. You'll do well to keep her close. Would I do well, or would you do well? I cocked my head. We do well, Bryce said, getting up from his chair. He walked over to me and raised my chin with his hand, locking eyes with me. In one fell swoop, he picked me up and put me on his desk, parting my knees with his waist. He kissed me hard, so hard that I didn't even notice his pants were undone, and my panties were pushed aside. Bryce was a passionate man in everything he did, including me. I knew what got him off: control, power, dominance. I knew that the moment he walked into my bar, it looked as though he had a hanger in his suit jacket. That's how high his shoulders were raised. Had he flashed that smile of his, not in a courteous way, but like it was a mini advertisement for himself. The 5 second ad before a YouTube video, and when he took a seat at the bar, it was as if he had bowed rather than sat down. The $100 bill he set on the bar was strategic. That melancholy rare class single malt Scotch whiskey he ordered wasn't one he had a taste for. It was one he ordered to show that he had a life had a taste for him. We tend to gravitate towards people like Bryce, people that seem untouchable, like nothing bad could ever happen to them, like the world exists because they're in it and not the other way around. I know, right? I thought it was going to be a moment. I was like, slow down. I'm going to make you scream. Speed up. I'm going to make you scream, Bryce panted as he entered me. We were both inside each other now, but in different ways. I swallowed my screams and became breathless while Bryce rocked fiercely back and forth. I let him do me fast and hard because Bryce liked everything that way. Sex, business, life itself. I knew what he wanted, what he needed, and I gave it to him. People that get that way think that they're the ones in control, but the ones that give are the ones that's rule. It's not the politician in office, but the donor behind the check that wields the sword. After he was done, he circled back to the conversation. I wasn't keen on having. He zipped up his pants and pulled me into a sitting position. So, you'll give them a chance? I resituated my panties, hopped off the desk, and pulled down my dress. I guess I shrugged my shoulders. Bryce brought his fingers to his temples and rubbed them as if I had suddenly caused a headache. He was always so dramatic about getting his way. It was why he had fared well in politics. I will, I said. I'll make nice. I'll fit in. I'll be their best GD friend if that's what you want. His hands fell to his side. His headache was magically cured. He walked to me and kissed me on the cheek. Perfect. You'll want to join that committee. Perhaps run for vice chair too. And that salon they all go to on Peach Street, you want to become a client. They're there all the time, and it's the perfect way to bond and fit in quickly. He smiled. I'll never get into that salon. Karen said there's a waiting list. I put my hands on my hips. I was relieved too when Karen told me there was a wait list. I'd rather spend my time outdoors or reading, not gossiping in the salon with women I barely know. Like I said, I knew there'd be sacrifices with my life with Bryce, but I didn't think socializing with chatty, middle-aged women would be one of them. This world wasn't one I was familiar with, but it was one that I knew that I could learn to live in and live well. Bryce picked up his phone. Stephanie, call the salon on Peach Street. You know the one. He looked up and smiled at me. With me, babe, there is no wait list. I smiled back, but inside I was screaming. I knew it would be a mistake. Well, that was a little quickie. Yeah, just a little dabble. Chapter 6, Olivia. The front door opened and closed quickly. I knew he was here, and I was waiting for him in the upstairs bedroom, draped in a red leather corset with matching thong, black fishnets, and the red bottom heels. My hair was slicked back, my lips were deep red, my eyes were smoky, and my patience was thin. He was late. I punished him for that. I stood with one hand on my hip, waiting for him to enter the room, and then me. When I had allowed him, of course, I ran the flogger up on the side of my thigh, slapping it against my toned leg. It stung, but I didn't wince. It was just testing out how hard I'd hit him with it, enough for it to hurt. You just hop from one to the other. But not so much that he wouldn't want to come crawling back to me. That was the name of the game. Just enough, not too much. He entered into the room with a smile, and it quickly diminished when he saw the stern and annoyed look on my face. He was 6'2" and looked like a yuppie from New England, completely out of the place down in the South, but he still carried himself with a tremendous amount of confidence. You're late. I slapped the fogger on the gold sheets of the California king bed. I know. He flicked off his shoes, removed his pants and shirt, and put his hands up as if he were surrendering to me. I got caught up with the patient. No excuses. Kneel, I commanded, and he did. On all fours. He listened well because I had him trained well. I walked to him and whipped his shoulders, back, butts, and thighs until he said, use our safe word, and should I say words. Karen's a bee, he yelped. I stopped immediately and smiled. I had texted him earlier our new safe phrases for tonight. His body was covered in splotches of red, and his face was flushed from holding his breath to counteract the pain signals. I typically never went this hard right away, but he pissed me off with his tardiness, and Karen pissed me off at lunch. What do you want? Not Karen's a bee. It's the same word. Karen's a bee. Oh, I'm done. Um, what do you want me to do? What do you want to do to me? I propped the flogger beneath his chin, pulling his head up. Whatever you allow me to do, Mrs. Petro. I'm in a good mood tonight. I raised an eyebrow. Stand up. He stood up before me, his body fully erect. His penis followed suit. I knew exactly how to push his buttons. I knew what he wanted, and I knew how to get what I wanted. I liked my allowance first. I smirked, sticking out my hand for payment. He grabbed his wallet from his pants and placed the money from it into my hand. I didn't have to count it to know it was well over $2,000. I threw the money on the bed and turned back to him as he waited for my next command. I pointed to the money that was strewn about on the silky bed. That money? Yes, he nodded. I want you to F me on it. No other words were spoken. He picked me up and flung me onto the bed, ripping off my corset, fishnets, and thong. He left the heels on, and I kept the flogger in my hand. He liked to be in control, but only for small periods of time. I let him kiss and lick me from my neck to my vag, and then I slapped him. It was always about teasing. Never let him have too much at once, or he'd walk away forever. It was how I controlled him, how I made him mine. I forced him to lay on his back, and I flogged his chest and stomach until he used another one of our safe phrases. Chairwoman Olivia Petrov, he yelled. Good boy. I kissed his chest, his stomach, and made my way down. I looked up at him like the girls do in porn films. He smiled, and then I consumed him. His eyes went wide, his body tensed up, his legs jerked. Before he could relieve himself, I sucked my teeth into him, waiting for another safe phrase. Shannon's reign is over, he cried out. Opening my mouth a little wider, I pulled away. I thought my safe sentences were going to be too much for him to remember, but he was a smart boy. He exhaled. He exhaled heavily, a combination of pain and pleasure. I crawled back up to him and whispered into his ear, I want you inside of me. 2 seconds later, he was inside, and 30 seconds after that, he was laying beside me, panting like an overweight English bulldog and telling me how great I was. I got out of bed and wrapped a little black silk robe around myself. He was still gasping as if he were his last breath. I was entirely composed. Hey, we're reading the book called One of Us is Dead. Man, Olivia, you're a goddess. I know. I'm going to shower. Stack up my bills after you catch your breath. Before I left the room, he was already collecting my money, his breath still ragged. Dogs are so easily to train, especially the stray ones. Dropping my robe to the tile floor, I stepped into the shower. The warm water splashed and slithered on my skin. I leaned my head back into the stream of hot liquid and closed my eyes. My mind was practically blank. Wealth will do that to you. Make you not worried. I know this. I learned this. Because there was a time when I didn't have the security of cash, but there was also a time before that when I did. They say it's better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all. The same is not true for money. As a child, my family was rich, like Oprah rich, but not the legal way. Apparently, that's a difference. But try explaining that to a 14-year-old. Try telling a teenager that they have to sell all of their stuff, that their father's going to prison, and that they'll have to transfer to a public school, that their friends will no longer be their friends, that everything they've ever known would come crashing down around them and be nothing more than cruel memory, a dream, just short of reach. When I grew up, I made sure my life was exactly what I wanted it to be, a life of privilege, just as it should have been all along, had my screwing up of father not derailed everything. But I suppose I do have to thank him in a way. Without him, I wouldn't have this hunger inside me, this need to never return to the humiliating poverty of my childhood. The truth is, I'd rather be dead than poor, and the easiest way to stay rich is to stay powerful. If you're just joining, we're reading One of Us is Dead by Geneva Rose. You can either listen, keep scrolling, or get blocked by my moderator. Kindness is free. I will be ending at, I'm supposed to be ending at 1:30. So we're going to do one more chapter and we're going to end it off for the night and we'll be back tomorrow. Chapter 7, Jenny. So just to break it down, Jenny is the owner of the hairdresser Glow, where all of the elite women come to get their hair done. Olivia is married to, did they say what his name was? I don't know if they said her husband's name, but Dean. Olivia's married to Dean. Shannon was married to Bryce. Bryce divorced Shannon to marry Crystal, who was younger. And Karen is married to Mark, and they have a 5-year-old son named Riley. We're going to read chapter 7, and then we're going to close for today. I am going to leave the repost up so you can listen to it later. Chapter 7, Jenny. The sun had yet to fully rise as I unlocked the back door of the salon. I flicked on the lights and ventured in. This time was always special to me. I liked to open Glow earlier than needed so that I could enjoy a quiet sense of peace before the day truly begins. Plus, my best friend Keisha always came in early to mentally prepare before a day of hair and makeup, and before the inevitable drama would begin. It wasn't long later that I heard Mary, our front desk receptionist, came in through the front door. She called out, "Good morning," and got right to work. The desk chair slid across the floor and the computer chimed. Keisha came strolling in full of confidence with 2 cups of Starbucks, one in each hand. Her father was white and her mother was black, creating the gorgeous woman with icy blue eyes, full lips, and long, voluptuous, curly brown hair that I may add I've never had to do any work on. It was that perfect. "Jenny, coffee's here," she said, handing me my cup. "You're a lifesaver." I grabbed it and immediately pressed it to my mouth. "What's on the docket today?" Keisha took a seat at one of the beauty stations, swiveling around in the chair as she sipped at her coffee. "Shannon will be here essentially all day. She has to get in all of her treatments before the end of the month." "Oh, yes, she's single, ready to mingle." Keisha waggled her eyebrows. "I had assumed not. The divorce was out of nowhere, I heard, and I think Shannon really loved Bryce." Keisha took another drink. Or was it the money and power she loved? With these women, you never know. I finished up my coffee and dropped the Starbucks cup into a garbage can. "Speaking of love, when are you going to let me set you up on a date?" Keisha winked. "Never," I said as I walked around the salon, ensuring everything was perfectly clean and in place. This salon was my baby, my relationship, my everything. It was important to me that it was pristine. "Oh, come on. Let's get you back on the horse. What's your type?" she asked. "I don't have a type." I raised an eyebrow. "Yes, you actually do. It's sterile, and you can't return any feelings or affection." Keisha gestured in a swooping motion. I took a seat in the salon chair beside her. "Ha ha, very funny. This salon can't love you back. I know that, but I just don't have the time to date." I turned my chair towards the mirror and applied some light makeup, ensuring I didn't conceal the speckle of freckles that covered my nose and cheeks. Olivia was wrong about those. They were beautiful. There were no wrinkles or lines to be found aside from the deep dimples. I straightened my white flowy blouse. It wasn't as if it was right for my small frame when I bought it, but it grew on me because it was plain and didn't draw any attention. "Make the time. Hire another person to work the salon." Keisha got up from her seat and stood behind me. She placed her hands on my shoulders and looked at me in the mirror. "You're not getting any younger." "I'm only 31, I challenged, "and soon you'll be 40. "That's an awful thing to say," I laughed. Keisha shrugged her shoulders. "I only speak the truth." I spun my chair around and rolled my eyes at her playfully. She was right. Time didn't stop or slow down for anyone, and it seemed the busier you were, the faster it passed by. I hadn't been on a date since before I opened Glow, and I knew deep down that I needed something more, something outside of the 4 walls, outside of the wealthy women I served. I had been living vicariously through them, but that's just a fancy way of saying that I hadn't been living at all. So how are we going to deal with the whole Santa situation? Can we stagger everyone else's appointments? Keisha picked up the salon planner. "I think that's what we're going to have to do. It's pretty ridiculous, you know. I thought this was a salon, not a daycare for middle-aged women, Keisha teased. Well, that's where you're wrong. These women have it all, and they still have something to complain about or fight over. Can we raise this membership fees since we had added babysitting to our services? Our laugh was cut short as the front door chimed. Go on through, Miss Block. Jenny is ready for you, Mary said. It's Mrs. Madison, Shannon corrected. Oh, God. Oh, good God. She was keeping Bryce's name, holding on to the possibility she would gain her fortune, power, and husband. That poor woman. Shannon emerged from behind the black curtains dramatically, as if she were entering the stage of a sold-out Broadway play. All that was missing was a spotlight and applause. Her long golden blonde hair was faded. She hadn't had it touched up in a while. I'd taken care of that today. Her perfectly carved nose looked as if it had been created by an artist, and it was. The artist's name was Dr. Richardson, Karen's husband. Her skin was smooth as marble in the only way that the Botox could do. Also thanks to Dr. Richardson. She wore only fashion greats: Armani, Gucci, Prada, Chanel, Versace, and on this day she was dressed in a hodgepodge of them all: white Versace linen pants, Prada slingback heels, Armani blouse, and Chanel glasses with the Gucci bag. She was thin and curvy in the way only a 40-year-old can be, which requires copious amounts of time in the gym, extreme dieting, and regular trips to the physician. Unlike women much younger than her, she looked like she put a lot of effort into achieving her appearance. Effortless was never a word you put in the same sentence with Shannon. We are reading One of Us is Dead by Geneva Rose. She whipped off her sunglasses and smiled at Keisha and me. Her makeup was heavy. She was overcompensating for the loss of her marriage. That much was obvious. My heart broke for her. Shannon was a housewife. It was how she had introduced herself the first day we had met just over 3 years ago. I'm Mrs. Shannon Madison, wife of Congressman Bryce Madison, she had said. It was her identity until it wasn't. Now another woman held that title. As humans, we define ourselves by the things we are most proud of: being a mother, a salon owner, a free spirit. But what happens when you lose that? Who do you become? Hi, Shannon. We're so glad you could make it in. I walked to her and kissed her on both cheeks. She hugged me a little harder than she usually did. I knew she needed it, so I hugged her tightly, rubbing her back with one of my hands. We released one another when she was ready, and I smiled and nodded at her. She nodded back. Her eyes moistened. She took a deep breath and her eyes lost their glisten almost instantaneously. She had been practicing composure. Keisha and Shannon hugged and exchanged pleasantries. What can we do for you today? I asked. First, champagne, then the works, head to toe. Every treatment and service you have, I want it. I want to leave here drunk and beautiful. She laughed, but she was very serious. In the time that I had known Shannon, she had always been so put together. She wasn't a big drinker and she rarely lost control. She did juice cleanses and every fad diet under the sun. She took care of herself. This Shannon wasn't one I was familiar with, and I understand she was hurting and clearly trying to numb the pain. Keisha grabbed a bottle of champagne and popped it. She poured a glass and set the bottle beside her, while Shannon took a seat in the salon chair. Beauty is my specialty, I said, as I wrapped a cape around her. And booze is mine, Keisha added. Then I'm in good hands, Shannon laughed and looked at the both of us. She raised her glass and drank the whole thing in one big gulp. This has been the first 7 chapters of One of Us is Dead by Geneva Rose. I will be back every night until we finish. So tomorrow we're going to start at 12:30 as I work the second shift majorly. Thursday I work in the morning, so we'll probably be starting at 10 p.m. on Thursday, and we'll be reading at 12:30. Excuse me, on Friday. Um, it's 70 chapters. It's a lot of pages. I don't know how long it's going to take us to get through this. We may not finish it by Sunday, which is okay if we don't, but we'll take it day by day. I will want to start reading yesterday, but the book just became available on Libby today. So thank you for all who have joined. Thank you to my mod, Cami, who has been responding to people's questions. I wasn't trying to ignore your questions. I just wanted to read as much as I can, knowing that we were on a limited amount of time. If it so happens, I may add a Friday afternoon reading. We'll take it day by day. But thank you so much for joining. This replay will be up, and I will see you all tomorrow.